Produced by Betoit, the Masters of Wrestling gives a special thanks to Jesse Hernandez and the EWF, Empire Wrestling Federation, and to each of you, our loyal viewers. And now, on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Stylin' the Podcast. I am one of your co-stars, the Master Emir, along with my co-star, ladies and gentlemen. He is a former WWE Tag Team Champion. He is a former still current AEW superstar with a less than decent tag team, but I'll leave that aside. Ladies and gentlemen, the stylist, Rico Costantino.
Oh, they're not there.
Yeah.
No, I've changed.
Yeah.
I've evolved.
You
But
have.
I am still the stylist like I was last week. And I still give out styling tips, but I am on a ranch. I'm in Arizona. I'm living the cowboy life and training horses. And I am having the time of my life.
You are having the time of your life. We are having the time of our lives here, ladies and gentlemen. But before we begin, Rico, what would look good to you and I?
I want all the people watching to lay the smack down on that subscribe button, hit the like, and share it with your friends because this show has a wonderful special guest. I love this guy.
Yep.
This guy helped me throughout my career, and I can't wait for you to introduce him.
Absolutely. I'm going to introduce him right now. It's an absolute honor. Likewise for me to be hosting this week, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time. He's making his first appearance here. He is a senior WWE official. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jimmy Korderas.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Rico, pleasure to see you. Emir, thank you. It was a pleasure getting to know you up here in Canada in Gatineau at the Wrestling Con. The 80s Wrestling Con was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But Rico, how are you, my friend? Great to see you. You look,
You
know what? You look happy and relaxed.
Yes. Unlike many years, I'm living in Arizona. I'm living the cowboy life, and I am, to take another challenge. Like everybody knows, I'm into cowboy mountain shooting. I'm taking care of 3 horses, 3 Great Danes that are rescues, and 15 chickens. So I'm just like Rip on Yellowstone.
That's tremendous. Thank goodness I get the analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who don't get that, go and watch a bit of Yellowstone. You'll understand what Rico's talking about. But Jimmy, like I said, it's an absolute pleasure. It was a pleasure getting to know you up in Gatineau in Canada. It was a wonderful experience. 80s Con. It's so strange. It's already 2 weeks into the past already. I can't believe it. It was like yesterday I was taking off on the flight and being up there. But it was so nice to see you in your element with all the other guys there, the Killer Bees, Sergeant Slaughter, Demolition. The whole crew was there. So obviously for me, growing up, having watched you and the likes of them, it was definitely a wonderful experience, one that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. But Jimmy, I want to put you under the spotlight here, seeing as you are our special guest. Because referees, a lot of the times, the spectators, the fans will focus on the wrestlers in the ring, but we've often heard there's always, there's a third man in the ring. Without you, champions, they're not born in the gym. It starts from the inside and it works its way out. Do you feel it more difficult to obtain muscle? Are you tired or perhaps depressed? Then there's a solution. Our brand new partner and sponsor, Care Aesthetics of La Quinta, are here to help you get restored to optimal health. Just use the contact information in this video and schedule your free consultation. Be sure to mention the name of the podcast, whether that be Power and Glory, Stylin', Masterclass, or Hey Roma, when doing so. We wish you all the best in your road to optimized health. And now, back to the show. There's a third man in the ring. Without you, that part of the ingredient, nothing else works. But I want to know, Jimmy, what I'm sure all our viewers want to know is what is the
Mhm.
backstory of Jimmy Korderas? How did you get into this wacky world called pro wrestling? What drew you to it, and what were your first experiences?
Oh, what drew me to it as a kid growing up here in Toronto, we had wrestling on all day Saturday, and it was not just one particular promotion. Obviously, Maple Leaf Wrestling here in Toronto was prominent with the
Yeah.
Tunnies who used to run it, and they got a lot of their talent from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. But they got talent from everywhere. They got talent from WWF in New York. They got AWA talent. They got Mid-Atlantic, which was their prime source of wrestlers coming in, and they ran every 3 weeks like clockwork at Maple Leaf Gardens. But on television, we also got AWA wrestling
Mhm.
on one channel.
Okay.
We got NWA wrestling from the Buffalo affiliate, and from the other Buffalo affiliate, we also got WWF wrestling. We had Calgary Stampede wrestling. We had international wrestling from Montreal. We had All-Star wrestling from Vancouver. I mean, it was just a smorgasbord of everything. And Saturdays, it was like a fight to get me to go outside and play as a kid because I stayed home and watched TV all day long, watching all these different wrestling shows.
Yeah.
And then Saturday
I
night
used
would
to
come.
do it Saturdays too
Yeah,
because AWA showed in Las Vegas.
right.
So I made sure I was there to watch, even as a kid. I would cut
Mhm.
out playing and going in the desert to watch wrestling.
Right. And again, growing up, and this is Canada, it's hockey town, so it would be wrestling all day and then Hockey Night in Canada and
Okay.
my Toronto Maple Leafs in the evening. But then right afterwards was when we'd get another wrestling show at 10:30 at night from a small station that aired All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver, where I got to see guys like Eric Froelich and a young Roddy Piper
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So I just gravitated towards it as a youngster, and it's been there ever since.
Yeah. Now, did you want to be a wrestler? That's the question.
Of course, the thought had crossed my mind, but after getting a little older and going down to Maple Leaf Gardens every 3 weeks and watching it, and I used to sit second row ringside for every show
Mhm.
and watching it up close, I realized early on that this is probably something I should leave to the professionals, and because contrary to popular opinion, I know people are out there, oh, well, you know what they're doing and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. That
Mm-mm.
stuff hurts, and
Yeah.
it hurts a lot.
Yeah.
The boys and girls put their bodies through a lot.
Hmm.
And I
I
don't think
saw,
people understand it because they're so good, they make it look so easy.
Yeah.
And that's why some people don't understand. But I had that close-up view early on, and as much as I enjoyed it, I figured maybe that's not a path for me, but I'd love to do something
Hmm.
and just be a part of the wrestling business in some form or fashion.
Yeah. So that decision was made in your teens then? So you're a teenager at this point?
Yeah, late teens and just pushing into early 20s.
Okay.
Like I would go down every 3 weeks like clockwork. I was there. I was like I had like the equivalent of season's tickets, so I sat in the same seats every show.
So
And
you,
I took pictures. I
yeah.
took pictures, and there was a place up here. It was a time where you actually had to take your film to get it developed. I know a lot of young people don't
Photomat.
understand yes,
Yeah. They have
but
no idea.
they have no idea. But
No,
we had a place up here in Canada called Direct Film, and they would double your prints for $1.
Okay.
So I would keep one set of prints for myself as a souvenir, and the other one I'd take with me to the next show and sell them for $2 a picture.
Oh, wow.
wow.
Entrepreneur.
Oh, you're a businessman. You're a
Yeah.
tycoon already.
I
Yeah.
tried until the guy that worked for Jack Tunney, who took the photos for the program, caught me outside Maple Leaf Gardens and told me that was kind of illegal.
Yep. Yep.
Copyright. He went through the whole thing, but he kind of took a liking to me. He said, "You don't seem like a bad guy. Just
Yeah.
don't do it right in front of the building where everybody can see you."
Yeah.
And then he introduced me to Jack Tunney to kind of say, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we could bring this kid on board to kind of help take pictures for the program and stuff like that."
Yeah.
And Jack said, "Well, we don't need another photographer, but we'll find something for the kid to do." And that's when it started off as being the guy who just ran around and did whatever needed to be done.
Wow. So, but at this,
So you're,
oh, sorry,
oh,
Rico, go
sorry.
ahead.
So you're actually Canadian, yes?
Yes, born and raised in Toronto.
Well, guess what? I'm half Canadian. My mother
Oh,
was born in Vancouver, BC.
oh, wow. So,
Yeah, so I'm
I,
half Canadian and
yeah,
half Sicilian.
okay.
So I don't know what that mix means, but
It, me-
I'm
it,
half Canadian.
it means when you get angry, you apologize afterwards.
Yes, but I will do what I have to do and then
Mhm.
apologize later. But that's a
Yeah.
Yes.
Sicilian way. You know
Yes.
Yeah.
how Sicilians ask questions?
How?
They go, ping, what did you do? That's a Sicilian way. They hit you first and then they ask you what happened.
Well, I'm of Greek descent,
Canadians,
so yeah.
What was
yeah,
that, Jimmy?
I'm
Canadians
of
the
Greek
other way.
descent, so it's kind of very similar. It's part of the, I guess it's
I
part,
couldn't
yeah.
tell by your last name.
Actually, it confuses people because I've been to Spain and they always call me Senor Cordero over there. They kind of no, and try to explain. No, it's a K, not a
Yeah.
C,
Yeah.
and there's an S at the end. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Korderas.
yes.
Korderas, yes, that's right. But at the time, Jimmy, going back to when you got brought in by the Tunnies, were you planning to do anything else in your life? That's the interesting part there. Were you studying? Were you working somewhere else? Did you have other plans? Let us know.
My father was in business. He had his own garage. He was a mechanic, a
Mhm.
licensed mechanic, and he had a Texaco station right in the middle of Greektown here in Toronto. And he was hoping that maybe I would eventually grow up and take the reins,
Mhm.
but that wasn't, you know what I mean? If your heart isn't into it,
Yeah.
it's, did I like cars? Yes, but I didn't like fixing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, my dad was like a savant when it came to fixing. He could fix anything in a car.
Yeah.
And but he didn't like pressure me or anything like that. So I worked part-time for him when I could. I was working part-time at Brewers Retail up here, which is the beer store,
Okay.
until, the opportunity presented itself where I could actually not work part-time and work full-time in the wrestling business.
Yeah. So how did
When did
refereeing?
that happen?
Yeah, go ahead, Rico.
When did that happen?
Um,
When you went full-time referee? Sorry,
um,
Amir.
It's all right.
No, no, no. It was 1987 when I began refereeing, and it was at the suggestion of Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson said to Jack Tunney one day, "Look, we have the kid here. He's doing all this stuff, but he's waiting around during the show. Why don't we use him? We'll train him to be a referee." And Jack's reaction was, "Yeah, but do we want to smarten the kid up?" And
Mm,
Pat looks at him and says, "Well, Jack, he's hanging in the locker room with the boys. He's friends with all the boys. I think he kind of has an idea what's going on.
yeah.
Why don't we use him?" So, you know,
Yeah.
Pat told me to get the black sneakers, black pants, the blue shirt, the black bow tie, carry it with me at all times. And then I
Yeah.
got thrown to the wolves one day at a house show here in Ontario.
Yeah.
And thank goodness SD Jones was in the match, my first match, and he helped me talk me through it. And then after that, he sat me down and said, "Okay, here's what you need to do. Get with the other referees, the veterans, ask questions,
Mhm.
watch other matches, and just continue to learn."
Yeah. That's the
That's fantastic. SD Jones.
Hmm.
That's a great name.
it's,
Wow.
it's a good way to
Uh,
learn, on the fly. Good way
yeah,
to learn. Sink or swim,
yeah.
Yes.
it comes down
Yeah.
to. So,
Well, he swam
yeah.
because I can tell you from my matches, he was definitely one of the best referees
Oh yeah.
amongst the Hebners.
I mean, absolutely memorable. It's funny though, Jimmy, there are a few referees that stand out. I mean, obviously yourself, the Hebners, Mike Chioda, and what was the other one? Tim White? Was it
Kyoto.
Tim
Timmy
White?
White.
Tim White.
Yes.
Tim White.
And then
Mhm.
the one who's still there to this day from
Charles.
Charles Robinson. Yeah.
Charles
Yes.
Robinson.
Yeah. So there's a few that stick out, and obviously you made such an impact. I was talking to Mike Chioda actually about it the other day that you guys were just like one of the boys. In fact, it felt like you were actually wrestlers too to us
Mm.
spectators at the time. Going back a little bit though, Jimmy, I wanted to ask. So when you started in 1987, did they put you guys under contract or was it pay per appearance?
Yeah, back then it was pay per appearance. There weren't guaranteed contracts, especially for the referees back then. It's when you worked, you got paid.
Okay. And then
So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
no, go ahead.
hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
that is hard. What was travel like though? Did you guys have to procure your own hotels and travel as well, just like the guys? Just like
Well, I was fortunate because even when I began refereeing, I was part of the ring crew as well.
Okay.
So there was a standing rule where the ring crew had their expenses taken care of. So because a lot of times you were driving a ring truck,
Right. Yeah.
they would take care of all, obviously the fueling of the ring truck, any permits that needed with the ring truck, uh, hotels, and you had a bit of a meal allowance as well.
Okay. That's pretty good.
But also getting paid for setting up the ring.
Okay.
Yeah, see that's what I want to get into is I don't think a lot of people know what referees go through.
Mhm.
And Jim, if you can explain it, that you're not just a referee, you're the setup crew, the teardown crew,
Mhm.
everything. And there is so much work that you guys do that nobody understands. So please tell us,
Yeah.
what was your normal day like?
Okay, let me begin with especially when it got into those long weeks, as you remember, Rico, where we were pretty much, yeah, you were home hardly at all. But
Yep,
like, I'll give you an example from when they did the brand split and SmackDown and Raw became separate entities, and the referees also
yep,
became brand specific.
separate.
And I was a SmackDown referee, a designated SmackDown referee, but also on the crew. So the SmackDown schedule every week would be house show Saturday, Sunday, Monday, TV taping on Tuesday for airing later in the week. So I
Right.
would leave on Friday and I would try to get the latest flight out as I could, but I would leave on Friday. So I would be there in whatever town we were starting our tour on Saturday. So I could be there early to set up the ring.
Okay.
With usually, unfortunately, Tony Chimmel, who is a pain in my butt for over 3 decades. But anyways, I have to get a shot in at Chimmel every
There you
chance I
go.
get. But he was my riding
Tony
partner.
Chimmel.
Yeah, yeah, he was my riding partner forever. But we would get there, we would set up during the day, then of course make sure everything is set for everyone. On house shows was easy. We'd set up, everything would be relaxed until everyone showed up and went through their paces, had the show, and then afterwards we would tear it down, put it back in the truck, and just head to the next town. TVs were a little bit different. We had a call time of usually 10 a.m., sometimes 11 if we had a lucky. So we'd be there at 10 a.m. We would luckily have a crew in most buildings to help us set up the ring. So we would
A
get that set
union
up.
crew, right?
Yes,
A union
yes,
crew. Yeah.
yes. Get that set up as quickly as possible, as safely as we always made sure that everything was, we did our safety checks.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then
I
make sure that was,
remember the fire marshals or whatever
Mhm.
would come in, check the pyrotechnics and
Oh yeah,
check all that stuff. You had to go through everything.
yeah.
And that's why, you had to show up early because everybody in whatever state we were in had to have their pay and
Mhm.
their approval.
And everybody had their own little quirks, little different
Yep.
regulations, so to speak. But
Yeah.
we'd set it up, we'd
Yeah.
get it set all set up for everybody, and call time usually was, I want to say it was noon or 1 o'clock for the talent.
Noon.
It was
Our
noon.
call was noon.
Yes, noon. So the talent would all show up, and of course, fortunately for TV events, there would be catering,
Mhm.
and then they would do their production meeting, and then after the production meeting, everyone would get their assignments, and we'd get together with our agents and their talent and go over and make sure, cross our T's, dot our I's, and know exactly what's going on. And of course, that was only good until maybe an hour before showtime when everything changes, and you got
Yeah.
you got to
But
restructure everything.
I gotta put this in, the talent had to worry about their match with the agent.
Mhm.
And there are several times during a taping that you had to do more than one match.
Yes.
You had to know what happened with this match, what happened with this match, and this match.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a lot to put on somebody.
Mhm.
And I just want to say that to the fans. I could
Mhm.
have had Korderas, and Korderas could have had another match later on in the
Right.
night.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
he has to know my finish, somebody else's finish, maybe a third finish,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
and
a lot.
that's hard.
Yeah.
That's a lot to
Mhm.
remember.
Mhm.
And with me having ADD, me remembering my match was hard enough.
Mhm.
I
Right.
can't imagine you remembering 2 or 3 matches
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mhm.
in one night for a television taping. And
Right.
they're strict. They
Mhm.
Yeah.
are really on time
Mhm.
with a television taping. Am I right, Jim?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And of course, you got to remember too that before the actual tapings took place, there were dark matches. Uh,
Yep.
we didn't only tape SmackDown in one night, we'd also tape Sunday Night Heat or whatever main
No, we
event or
did
whatever.
Velocity
Velocity, yes.
SmackDown.
Yeah.
We did
Yes.
Velocity on SmackDown, and if
Right.
we did Raw, we did Heat.
Right. That's right. Sunday Night Heat was Raw and we were Velocity. Um, and then after the show is over, after the dark match as well,
Mhm.
that would go on afterwards just for the house, we,
Yep.
go out there and start tearing down because we have to get out of the way so everybody else can bring down the lights and the audio and all the other stuff. So we had to clear out and put it in the truck and head on to the next town.
So
And then,
needless to say, Jimmy, you
yeah,
probably slept very little during those 4 days, right?
yeah, yeah. During the 4 days, there was you didn't get a whole lot of sleep, let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
I wasn't a big go out afterwards kind of guy either.
Mhm.
Like some guys would like to, you know,
Yeah.
have a little fun
And I've
afterwards.
said this to Amir that
Mhm.
I wasn't a go out after guy either
Mhm.
Right.
because I was older. I mean, I
Mhm.
debuted at 40 years old as a rookie. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in the next day, get
Yeah.
to the
Mhm.
show, work out, you know, and, that's a smart to do the business,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
and
Yeah.
there's the other side that wanted to celebrate everything.
Hmm.
And,
Right.
you can't do that, not living the life we live,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and the toll that it takes on your body, on your mind, and stuff like that. Which I'm glad to hear, Jim,
Yeah.
that you were going out there doing that. It was a job,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that's
Yes.
how I saw it. It was a
Yeah.
Yeah.
job,
And
It
that's,
was,
and the
which
celebrity part.
which I enjoyed
yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed
immensely.
my job. I
Yes.
really did. I enjoyed being who I was and what I was for the short time, but it was pure,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Your
and
intentions, the intentions are this though, because I hear stuff with some guys here and there. The intention wasn't to go there to become famous. It was
No.
for the love of what that profession is, the love of the fans. It was totally like you said. It was a pure motive behind it.
Especially for a referee, because if your goal is to become a referee, you don't become famous. I mean, it's flattering when people recognize you, which is
Yeah.
very nice, but at the same time, as a referee, your job is to not be a focal point, to not be noticed. You're there to help the talent tell their story
Yeah. Yeah.
without being an integral part of it. And the integral part comes with the stuff that the audience does not see
Yeah.
when it comes to communication, when it comes to them buzzing you in your earpiece, let them know they've got to hurry. Let them know we've only got 3 minutes left. Tell them this. The agent will come in and all of a sudden say, "Hey, tell Rico to do this."
Hmm.
So now I have to creatively find a way to communicate that message without making it painfully obvious to the audience
Yeah.
that I'm communicating a message.
Right.
I have
Right.
to make it look like I'm doing it in the process of doing my job as a referee.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Now,
and that in itself is a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
And like I said, You, Korderas, the Hebners, Robinson, all did it. Teddy Long, that they would do that for me, let me know what I got to do, and believe me, being a talent out there doing what I'm doing, you had more responsibility to make the match go the way it needed to go. You and everybody I just mentioned, because without you, it wouldn't have been so successful.
Yeah.
And everybody I mentioned,
But
you guys were an integral part. I remember my first dark match. Teddy Long was my referee.
Right.
And I went out there. I was scared, nervous, everything. But I heard Teddy's voice.
Right.
And Teddy calmed me down. And he was telling me, do this, do that, do this, do that. And he got me through my first dark match.
Right.
And I can't appreciate Teddy anymore. He was wonderful, as all of you were.
Yeah. Teddy, because of Teddy's other ventures in wrestling where he was a manager, general manager, and he was so good at that, people forget how good a referee he was.
Yeah.
He was a great referee.
It's true, because when you mention Teddy Long to me, I think of him managing Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. I think of Doom, back when he was in WCW. So yeah, he definitely had a lot of facets to him. But Jimmy, going back a little bit, because you mentioned now that we're in the 2000s now with the SmackDown and Raw brand, but you were there since '87, so you were blessed to have witnessed that golden era. Golden era, and then the attitude, and then the ruthless aggression era. So, but what were the stark contrasts between, let's say, the golden and that ruthless aggression era for the referee? What changes were made during that 10, 15-year period?
The biggest changes were technology. Being able, because when I first started, there was no communication between Gorilla and the referees in the ring or anybody in the ring. All the signals
Explain Gorilla. Explain Gorilla.
Yeah. It's kind of like the goal position right behind the stage, right behind the set, where everybody's set up, where the producer sits with and Vince used to sit, at his monitor. Everybody had their monitors so and they would tell you when to go and that sort of stuff. It was the prep position before going out. So
exactly.
So we never used to get communication from them. Now they would be able to communicate with the timekeeper at ringside, who would ring the bell. A lot of times it was Mark Yaten for the most part. And we would have to kind of watch him for hand signals.
Okay.
That would give us times for the matches. He would count us down.
Okay.
And of course, with the advent of technology, all of a sudden now we have the IFB is an earpiece where they can directly communicate with us.
Yeah.
And like I said, give messages, pass messages, ask us questions. And, we'd give a little signal to say, yes, everything's okay, or no, everything's not okay.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be. And then now,
Jimmy.
Yes.
Jimmy. Okay. This means okay.
No.
Or no, this means bad.
Yes.
Or no, this means good.
Yeah. Yes.
This means bad.
Yes.
Okay.
If a referee did this,
the X.
Somebody was actually hurt.
Yes, the dreaded X.
Okay.
Yeah.
The dreaded X, yeah.
So
I remember that.
At first, it was kind of like they said, don't make it so overt that everybody could see it.
Right.
But you're trying to get them to notice.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, you do the X at Mark at the timekeeper's table so he could communicate right away to the gorilla position and say, hey, we just got the X, somebody's hurt.
Yeah.
And go from there.
What did you prefer though, Jimmy? Because some people I'm sure would say better not to have too many voices in my ear the whole time, but was it easier for you with the earpiece, or did you prefer the more organic way of looking for cues?
I actually thought the earpiece was a blessing in disguise, because there have been times where I get so entrenched in the match that I'm working and focused on my duties.
Yeah.
that I forget to look at the timekeeper, you know, and all of a sudden I look and I say, oh, wow, where'd those 5 minutes go? You
Yeah,
know, as
yeah,
opposed to getting counted down per minute, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I do like that. The only negative drawback from having them, you know, in your ear is, like you said, having them constantly in your ear.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
it was you originally it was a tool to help you, you know, keep times because television, you have to hit your times. It's very imperative you hit your times.
Yeah.
But then it became a tool to all of a sudden now the agent for the match jumps in and starts saying, well, tell them to do this, tell them to do that, tell them to do this, tell them to do that. And
Yeah.
then you'll get certain talents who are receptive to it and other talents who will give you the look and like, you know, shut up. I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not me. They're
Yeah.
telling me that.
Yeah. Yeah. There was
Jimmy,
one.
to set the record straight, did I ever tell you to shut up?
Oh no, never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to clear my name because
Your name is definitely not on that
I'm
list.
Yeah.
okay.
So let's go back to the beginning then, Jimmy, because I want to ask. So when you first came in 87, 88, I mean, you're at the height of it here. You got Hogan, Andre, Warrior, Savage. What was one moment when you were in a match and you were like, "Oh my gosh," because you were still fairly new at that time.
Mhm.
What was that "Oh my gosh" moment for you? A match that you called back then?
Um, the oh my gosh, first really oh my gosh moment was I'll give you two really quick. The first one was the first time I had to take a bump on television,
Okay.
which was you know, back then, of course, there were a lot of enhancement matches. You know, the superstar would face you know, God bless guys like Steve Lombardi and
Yeah.
Mario Mancini and Iron
Yeah.
Mike Sharp. But
Yeah.
that was the way television was presented back then.
Right.
But I was working a
Saturday
match,
night, what's it called? Saturday Night Live?
Saturday night's main event.
Main event.
Yeah,
Saturday Night Main Event. Yeah,
yeah,
I used to watch those.
yes. So it was a television taping, and I still remember Glens Falls, New York, and it
Yeah.
was in the third hour of taping because back then they would tape 3 hours worth of television. One man gang was facing Dave Studemeyer,
Mhm.
and of course, you know who's going over in that one.
Right.
It's gang, but his finish
No.
was the 747 slam, where he'd pick someone up like in the suplex position, but drop him face first.
Yeah.
So when they told me, okay, get with him, he'll tell you what to do. And I said, yeah, they asked me to get with you. He says, yeah, I'll give him my finish. You count 1, 2, 3. When you go to raise my hand, I'll shove you out of the way. I'll pick him up. I'll give it to him again. You get in my face. Then I'll hook you and give it to you.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Shit.
okay. I said, I'm like, I didn't want to say, I don't know, I haven't taken this bump before. I just said, okay, that's exactly how I approached it. I just said, okay, gang, I've never taken this bump. What do you need me to do?
Yeah.
He said, just make sure you try to get as vertical as you can, stay straight. Don't come down, don't bend your legs. Just come down. It'll be better if you land flat. And I
Yeah.
got your head, so your face is protected. Don't worry about a thing. I got you. And that
Okay.
was it. And I took that, and after that, people were coming up to me in the back. Are you okay? I said, yeah. Are you sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And they said, okay, great. They gave me a thumbs up, and I thought, okay, I think that was a test.
Okay.
Yep.
You passed the test
Yeah,
on that
that
one.
was.
Yeah.
I had my test when I first started, but they weren't taking bumps. It was integrity tests.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rico, I remember you telling me about that one. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that.
They were
Certain things.
integrity tests.
What was the second oh my gosh moment,
Oh,
Jimmy?
yes. Oh, I was blessed to get to work the first Survivor Series in
Oh
Cleveland,
wow.
Ohio.
Yeah, great.
And and being the outside referee for the main event match with the Team Hogan versus Team Andre. But there was a moment where they got in the ring and they got face to face and we had to separate them.
Mhm.
So jumping in the ring and standing between Hogan and Andre,
Yeah.
I'm
Holy
like,
mackerel.
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking. I'm like, I gotta, if we weren't live on pay-per-view, I'd be pinching myself all over the place. I can't believe I'm here
Yeah.
standing in front of Hogan and Andre. This is incredible.
Yeah. Because that was your first year. That was 87.
Yeah.
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 So, oh my gosh. Well, you were there, like I said, you were there in that thicket there. Did you get along well with all the boys at that time in the 80s and 90s? Were you firmly, were you getting along with everybody there in the locker room?
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with anybody. I didn't ruffle feathers. I didn't act like I owned the place, that's for sure. I kind of understood, I hate to put it this way, the hierarchy of
Mhm.
your
Yeah, the
place in
pecking order.
the pecking order. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So as much as the boys are very acceptive, you're still at that time technically not one of the boys.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I formed relationships with a lot of guys prior to actually, getting in the ring as a referee. So they knew me, they knew who I was, they knew that I was a reliable guy and someone who can uh, keep things to myself
Yeah.
because anybody who's been around wrestling for a long time will see a lot of things.
Hmm.
And you know what? There you
Yep.
go.
Yep. Yep.
yeah. The blinders.
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah.
see. I understand that
Hmm.
because you put horse blinders
Yes.
so they run straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Fantastic, Jimmy. Fantastic. You handled it perfectly.
What
Perfectly.
what were some of the best, let's just say top three matches that you ever got to call, Jimmy, in the WWE?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're gonna limit him to three?
Just three, Rico.
I
This
Just
this
three.
guy has done more matches than I can imagine.
Oh yeah,
oh.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay,
Okay.
Jim, if you can do three, and
Hmm.
it better include me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, Rico versus Rikishi has to be one of them.
Oh yes.
which
That was
one?
fun.
In Australia or
The one
regular?
on SmackDown.
Oh,
You
the
get
one where I pulled Charlie Haas out and put the
yeah.
chapstick on?
Yeah, but that's entertaining. That's
Yeah.
fun, and people forget. I don't want to get on tangent about all this 5-star
Oh yeah. Well, you can,
crap.
Jimmy. You
Well, I
can,
will.
Jimmy.
I will. I
Go,
will. It'll
go.
happen.
You're
But
the guest.
you asked for the
You
three
say what you
matches.
want to
Yeah,
say.
three matches first. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, I have to put WrestleMania 24, Undertaker versus Edge, because uh, not only is it a goal for a lot of talent to want to main event a WrestleMania, it just is an honor for a referee to be able to referee a WrestleMania main event, and to earn the trust of both those gentlemen
Mm.
meant more than anything to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only did I enjoy working the match, but one of the best compliments I ever got was from Ricky Steamboat, one of my idols, after the match. Because I took a bump in that one. I took a big boot from The Undertaker. After the match, when I got to the back, Ricky just came up to me and said, "Jimmy, that bump looked great. He looked like he took your head off." I said,
Mhm.
"Thank you, Ricky." I said, "How was the rest of the match? Was the rest of the match okay?" He said to me, "Jimmy, I'm sorry. I was so much paying attention to the story they were telling in the match. And I was so enthralled with that. I didn't even notice you." I said, "Thank you. That's the best compliment you can ever give me."
Mm. Mm.
And if I tell that to young referees nowadays, they look like a deer in the headlights. Like, what do you mean that's a compliment? He didn't notice you? I said,
Mm.
"Yes, because I'm
Mm.
not supposed to be."
Right. Right.
And anyways,
Exactly. You're the referee.
yes,
You're not supposed to be noticed, but when it's time to be noticed, you're noticed.
Yeah.
right.
See, a lot of people don't understand that.
Mhm.
No,
You're the third man in the ring, but the two talents are trying to tell a story,
hmm
and you're trying to blend in with that story.
right,
And people don't understand the importance of a referee.
right.
You guys are very important. And in all my matches, I never questioned any of my referees, none
Mhm.
of them. If
Mhm.
they said it, I did it. You do
Mhm.
this, you do that, because
Right.
they had the direct pipeline to the
Mhm.
gorilla.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
Yeah.
had it, and it was coming straight from gorilla.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
So,
I mean, past 1987.
yeah.
Right.
But I never ever questioned a referee, and unless I was told he needs to take a bump, I never ever questions his authority in the ring because he
Right.
is the authority
Yeah.
in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's what makes fans go, okay, get him off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I break. I
Yeah.
got to the count of 5.
Yeah.
Right.
And as a heel, you gotta help the referee do his job because I heard Vince say, you know, if you don't break at the count of 5, you're disqualified. That match
Right.
is it.
Mhm.
Yep. Mhm.
That's it. If he gets the 5, he has to ring the bell.
Yeah.
He has,
Right.
if you don't break, it's on you,
Right.
not on him.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
That's
That's
true.
very true. So
Very true.
that was the second one, Jimmy. So what was your third after the WrestleMania 24 main event?
Um, oh boy, tough one. But I'll pick I think it was
Rico.
SummerSlam 2002.
Okay.
That was the opening match with Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio.
Oh wow, yeah, I do recall
Oh, that
that.
was a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I faced Ray right after that.
Yes.
Oh
Man,
my gosh.
those
Kurt
those
Angle couldn't
guys.
keep him down,
Mhm.
and Lawler and um,
JR.
um,
Jim Ross.
JR, thank you. Yeah. Put
Yeah.
it over big that I could
Yeah.
keep Mysterio on the ground. But
Mhm.
Mysterio and Angle was a hell of a match.
So,
Yeah.
Hell of a match.
tell us about that one then, Jimmy. How was that difference? Because obviously you've got Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist. You've got Rey Mysterio, this high flying luchador,
Mhm.
totally different from Undertaker and Edge. So how
Yes.
was that like going into that one then? And why was it
It,
so special? Why was it so special?
first of all, the reason it was so special is because the chemistry those two had, they just gelled so well together. That was probably, I think that was their first match uh, that was televised. I mean, I think they may have worked on house shows before that, but that was um, the first one that actually they saw on television, and it was just there's no such thing as a flawless match,
Mm-mm.
but when you talk about getting close to it, that was close to one,
That's good.
and
It was a
and
great match. I remember
and
watching
yeah,
it.
and the psychology of it, the you know, Rey Mysterio fighting from underneath. When you talk about baby faces that are, you know, fighting from underneath, or fighting up,
Hmm.
having to punch up, so to speak.
Yeah.
Ray is among the best to ever do that
Hmm.
because obviously
Yep.
he was smaller than most individuals. So the story of the small guy fighting from underneath is built in with him. It's a natural, but he did it so flawlessly and also gaining sympathy from the audience. And Kurt Angle took to being a nasty heel
Hmm.
so naturally.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about believability. When
Hmm.
you watched him, you believe that that was Kurt Angle, the
Oh yeah.
man, not
Yeah.
just Kurt Angle, the wrestler.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I'm going to piggyback off what you just said, Jimmy, there, because you mentioned earlier about five-star matches. You also
Mhm.
dropped the word psychology and
Mhm.
entertainment. And
Right.
I think we would be remiss, Rico, you and I talk about this all the time. So let's get into that for a minute because, we all fell in love with something called pro wrestling, but
Yes.
it was kind of viewed as a sport at the same time. It was athleticism, but it was a story first and
Mhm.
foremost. And it was organic. We know now,
Yes.
Jimmy, you and I talked about, back in the day, even with Rico, it was call it on the fly, call it in the ring, right?
Right.
Okay. So when you saw this change occur and people started talking about five-star matches and all of that and rating it as if it were an actual sport, when that first started to change, did your did your affinity with pro wrestling start to change at that point, or were you still, I mean, how did it affect you seeing those changes come in?
It didn't affect me personally. I just didn't understand. See, when you talk about stuff like five-star matches and that's someone's subjective opinion.
Yeah.
It's not like if when I used to think back to it this way, what other sport has a rating system like that. You
I'm
don't watch a
drawing a blank.
football game and go, "Whoa, that was a 5-star football game," or
No,
"That was a 5-star baseball game or basketball game."
no.
Who gets ratings?
Exactly.
Gymnastics, they do
Yep.
gymnastics, it gets a rating. It's an Olympic sport,
Yeah.
gymnastics, but they have judges who rate it.
Yeah.
So, but as far as
Same
real,
thing here with the cowboy mounted shooting. Judges rate it.
yes.
Judges.
Now,
Yeah.
see now wrestling, of course, was predicated on portraying a combat sport.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of a combat sport is to win,
Yep.
whether pinfall, submission, whatever the case may be. So in that process of putting on a match, you want to tell a story on why the good guy or the baby face and the heel have an issue with each other.
Yeah.
You need a story there. You
Yeah.
can't just say, "Oh, this guy will face that guy. That should be a great match. Thank you very much." No,
No.
there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
And people are putting too much stock in moves. Moves do not sell tickets.
Mm-hmm.
People sell
No.
tickets.
Right.
Characters sell tickets. I want to be invested in what you have to say. I want to be invested in you as a heel. I want to see you get your butt whipped. And as a baby face, I want to see the baby face whip your butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. And that's what puts butts in seats.
Yes.
There's this
Yep.
thing now where everybody thinks that everyone has to do a twisting, burning 450 hammer Phoenix splash. And so it can go viral for 5 minutes on the internet, which absolutely means nothing afterwards. It's forgotten.
Well, I want to jump in there because you've struck a nerve here with me now. I
Hold on, I'm screaming at a cloud right now. Hold
yes,
on.
yes. I saw clips, obviously on social media and whatnot. Just like you said, Jimmy. I watch a guy. He's got the guy in the corner across from him, right?
Mhm.
Instead of just running in with a clothesline, hitting him in the corner, he decides that he's going to do 3 front flips first before for what? If you're in a real fight, are you going to be doing that's what I'm saying. It defies
No.
logic. It defies logic.
Yeah. See, now I'm going to go back. I came off Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio,
Mm.
right? I wrestled Rey the next week, and I was Rico the stylist,
Yeah.
And I asked Rey what he wanted to do. He goes, "Show your stuff off. Show it off.
Mm.
Do it." And I did moves that I'd never done before
Right.
in that match. And it was in Mohegan Sun with about 19,000 people.
Yeah.
And I let him shine. And I work with him, but it's hard to work with Rey because I'll tell you what, he is fast.
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
my gosh. He rolled over me like a four-wheeler on a mountain. I had to be prepared for all that he
Mhm.
had to offer. And I said, "Do whatever you want to do." And Ray said, "You do what you want to do." And I respect that man today because he let me show off moves that I couldn't do prior or afterwards.
Right.
And it was a hell of a match.
Yeah.
It was an 8-minute match.
Mhm.
So, and he went over, but I made the people, or we made the people believe that he was fighting for his life because of my martial arts background.
Yeah.
It made the story believable. And then once he got me in a position to do the 619 and everything else, everybody after that match, everybody stood up because the camera went around the audience. Everybody was standing.
Mhm.
And that's my job as a heel.
Yeah.
Right.
But coming back
You
to
know,
Ray, Rico, if I may jump in there. So with Ray, right, he's a luchador. Okay. Now Ray, luchadors do fly around, right? Okay.
Mhm.
But in contrast, I've never seen Ray waste 3 or 4 backflips just to get across the ring to hit somebody. You see what I'm saying? So
No,
Mhm.
there is this disconnect because as you were talking and Jimmy, I was thinking, well, is it an amalgamation of all the wrestling techniques now fused into one is why we're seeing all this flips and stuff, but I don't think it is. I don't think we
No.
can attribute it to the luchadors. It's not just that. Rico?
no, but um, with that, there's not three or four flips to hit somebody in the corner
No.
because if they're a fighter, they're going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Now, Tajiri, he did the after he hit you with a move, he'd do the springboard off the rope
Yeah.
and then hit you with a back elbow.
Right.
That made more sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do three backflips in a fight and lose the
Mm.
energy to hit my opponent.
No.
Mhm.
That's where I think the problem is.
Yeah.
You know, you want to show off your athleticism, do it another way.
Yeah.
Like I said, Tajiri did this and hit you, and you were, dazed.
Mm.
And he did a front flip, his legs hit the rope, and he came back and hit you with an elbow.
Hmm.
That made more sense.
Hmm.
Okay.
So, the moves have to make sense so the audience can take it in.
Yeah.
Like I said, with that Rey Mysterio match, everything made sense. I had my martial arts background, Rey had his luchador, and it was a luchador against a martial arts expert.
Yeah.
And the people bought into it,
So
you
yeah,
know.
exactly. And speaking of people, because I want to touch on this, because Jimmy, out
Mhm.
of everyone here on the screen, I mean, Jimmy, you were there. Gosh, what was your WWE tenure? It was from 1987 till what year, Jimmy?
Well, the referee tenure was from 87 to 2009, but I started working for Jack in 85.
Okay, so good. You've seen a good few decades there. Now, in terms of looking at the audience, because this is something else, I'm not sure, Rico, if I touched on this with you or maybe McCallion or Paul. The wrestling fan today is not like the wrestling fans in the 90s. We were invested week to week to week. We could not wait to see that next pay-per-view. Whereas I think what you get a lot these days is the casual wrestling fan that will just show up because it's something to do, something to watch. That's it. It's nothing more. They're not following that storyline because, quite frankly, where is the storyline to follow? You were in that age when, Warrior and Hogan, that build started in 1989, way before you got to WrestleMania 6. In fact, it probably started a lot earlier than that if you look back at the subtle hints. So, did you see that change in the fans when you were around it? Did you see that they were, did that vibe come across at all to you that hey, these are not regulars anymore, they're just casual fans now?
Um, you know, more so back, I would say it started, like I said, when I started,
Mm,
only because there was a lot of things that helped bring the wrestling industry more mainstream.
yeah.
Bringing in some celebrities from outside of wrestling made people notice. So
Right.
now people were
Well, were
saying,
you
"Oh, what
were
is
you
this?"
there when Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano showed up?
Uh, I wasn't there live, but I was working for Jack at the time, but I wasn't like at
Okay.
the Garden, Madison Square Garden, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that brought in the casual fans, and then WWE based their entire business on bringing in casual fans
Okay.
because if you're counting on just a hardcore niche audience, you can't grow your business. So,
Yeah.
that was the vision
Like
for them that they want to,
ECW.
right.
ECW had their
They had their
um,
hardcores.
Right.
hardcore fans that
Right.
always showed up.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what we're seeing now from AEW. Unfortunately, they are catering to a niche audience and they're not thinking big picture. They're thinking, okay, we're going to cater to the hardcore wrestling fans because
Mm,
that's what they want.
mm,
Okay, that's great. You can still cater to them, but at the same time, you got to give them more. You got to give something for the other viewers to want to tune in to see because casual wrestling fans, like them or not, if you're hardcore, there's the people that you're going to grow your audience with.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're not going to give them something that'll appeal to them,
Mhm.
then you're going to lose them. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So, as we bring this episode to a close, Jimmy, I just got to ask you, do you think, number one, that there's ever a possibility that pro wrestling could go back to what brought it to the dance in the late 80s, early 90s? Do you think there's any hope that that long form storytelling, those type of characters could come back, or would you hope it comes back?
Odin,
I I
keep
think
going.
yeah, no, I think it can. There's a
Odin.
possibility. Anything. When I look at someone like a Gunther,
Okay.
who's been involved in some long-term stories with some great
Wow.
talents,
I
and this guy's a
wow.
throwback to old school. And it's been so long since anybody's come along
Odin,
that's been
come up
presented
here.
like that it's
Yeah.
almost like it's new school.
Yeah.
People have seen this, they're going, wow,
Come
what
here.
is this? Of course, old farts like myself see this guy and go, I remember guys like that.
Yeah.
Now, newer fans go, boy, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yeah.
just a guy who
Yeah.
just talks crap and kicks ass. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to them, it's new.
Yeah.
So they see this and they go, wow, I could really get into this. And they start to like it.
Yeah.
But it, you know, like it or not, our old boss Vince used to say, wrestling is a variety show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got to give
Yep.
something for everybody. You have your match for the diehards here. You have your comedy segment here for entertainment purposes for other people. You have the match
That's where I
where,
came in.
Yeah.
When I
you
was
know,
Adrian Street,
Yeah.
I was the
yes,
comedy relief.
Yeah.
yes, right. You know, there's a little bit of something for everybody. And you know what? Nowadays, unfortunately, there's again, that small vocal minority that thinks if you stray away from the in-ring product and just don't, they want to see in-ring wrestling. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't
It's,
care about the other stuff. The other stuff to them is, oh, that's Hollywood. That's the WWE way of doing things. No, that's the pro wrestling way of doing things. That's how you attract an audience.
yep. And I was
By
going to
giving
say,
them story.
yeah, I was going to say, Jimmy, you believe in a story, you believe in a character. That's what
Yes.
drew me in. I was telling, I forget who I was telling the other day, but I grew up in the UK. What was that?
Yeah. Here's where you make your money.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
All there, and the expressions and
Mhm.
the everything. I was telling when the UK, it was such a huge hit in the early 90s. It was
Mhm.
very rare to find one boy in school who did not like WWF wrestling. And
Right.
that's when I think, looking at it, because that was it. I was talking to someone who's got a friend of mine who's got kids now. And he was saying, yeah, you hear about it here and there. There's maybe one or two kids that say, oh, I like wrestling at school now. But back
Mhm.
then in the 90s, it was every single boy.
Right.
Like there was no one. So obviously, whatever Vince had done, like I said, his personal life, we know, he's done
Right.
some
Yeah.
awful things. But as a businessman, as a man in professional wrestling, did the
Mhm.
greatest thing for pro wrestling at that point when he
Right.
invented those characters because it connected with the entire planet, and it
Yes.
did. It
Yes.
just, so I hope it comes back anyway. I hope that we can
Mhm.
get back to that level of storytelling. Rico?
Mhm.
Yeah. But they call him the third man in the ring,
Mhm.
but he reacts when I was the heel, but when I turned face with the Adrian Street character
Yeah.
and I pulled my shenanigans, the referee had to be involved to help put it over.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Smack somebody in the ass, kissed them, or whatever I did,
Mhm.
and the above I mentioned referees, the ones that put it over made it over to the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you knock somebody down with a leg trip and you get on their back and you start riding them like a horse, the
Right.
referee's going to be like, oh my God, what the hell is this? I haven't seen
Yeah.
this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that third man in the ring is so important,
Mhm.
and when I did my shenanigans, the referee helped put that over. In fact,
Mhm.
they put it over so much when I was a heel, because I came out on Raw with the Adrian Street character. I
Mhm.
was a heel, and then the audience turned me face. So
Right.
then I went back to SmackDown
Mhm.
and was doing the shenanigans, and
Right.
the referees were just as involved as everybody in the match.
Oh yeah, of
They put
course.
it over,
Yeah.
you know,
Referee.
and that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The referee is so important. They don't get enough recognition to me because Charles Robinson and you and everybody I mentioned would be like, oh my God, he's riding him like a horse, smacking his
Mhm.
ass,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
Yeah,
slamming the
exactly.
Yeah.
butt,
Yeah.
and whatever. Even if I did uh,
Yeah.
house shows with a squash match, with a new talent,
Right.
the referees would put it over, which
Yeah.
helped the fans
Right.
put it over.
What I
So not
one
Yeah.
only is somebody like Jimmy valuable, he's valuable because of his knowledge. He's valuable because he sets up, tears up the ring, and in the match, he's involved.
yeah.
Even though he has people talking his ear, he's
Mhm.
involved.
Yeah.
He's part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's what made my characters go over so well.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I
You
think
know,
so.
it
I
was
think
it was the referee, you
yeah.
know.
Right.
And I
He
do
showed the reaction that they should show,
yeah.
Mhm.
because if he's a referee neutral and he's going, oh my God, what did you
Mhm.
just do?
Yeah.
That
Right.
tells the fans how to
Mhm.
react.
He's part of the story, right,
Right.
Jimmy? That's what it
He
is, you know?
Right.
So
definitely.
And I've gotten a lot of people who go and watch those old clips and they say, "Well, how do you keep a straight face?" And I'm like, "Because I have to. That's my
yeah.
job.
There's
Yeah.
I
some of
have
the
to
stuff I
react
did.
Yeah.
accordingly. You know
My
what I mean?
gosh.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like when
I mean,
Undertaker steps to you and what am I supposed to do? I'm going to back off. But
Right.
you're the referee, you're the
yeah.
authority. Yes, but he's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions to the rule.
It's funny you mention that, Jimmy, because I've often thought that like sometimes you see, again, I don't know which
Um,
company, but I'm sure
okay.
you've seen the clips too, where
Mhm.
something is
Okay.
not believable anymore. Where again, a guy who's 6'5" and there's a
Mhm.
guy in front of him who's 5'6", but yet
Mhm.
the guy who's tall is gonna the shorter guy is gonna step up to him like he's not afraid, he's not at all intimidated. This is defies logic because in real
Right.
life you would have real life reactions, and I think that's
Right.
was what the key was to WWE and what you did
Mhm.
and the likes of Earl Hebner, Mike Chioda, and all those.
Mhm.
You know, you reacted as if it was real, and
Right.
that's what made it. And that's what again, you know, why is it that we only remember certain referees from the history? That's remarkable too. Like your name and
Mhm.
amongst the other names that we mentioned, you
Mhm.
definitely gave the audience, like Rico said, even though you weren't technically one of the boys, it felt like you were to us
Mhm.
watching. There were those
Right.
memorable moments. So
Well, they
Thank
sent the
you.
message out.
yeah,
They sent
Mhm.
the message out because they're supposed to be neutral. And they go, oh my God, and if they're shocked, they should be shocked.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Right.
That's with my character.
yeah,
Or if something terrible happens, they have to have a normal human reaction
yeah,
before they
Mhm.
go back to their referee status and go, oh, holy crap. Like
yeah,
Right.
when Undertaker threw Mick Foley off the top of the cage,
yeah,
Yes.
you know, onto the table.
yeah.
The
Mhm.
referee, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened.
Right.
Jimmy,
You know,
Yeah.
exactly. Jimmy, I got to ask you, is
Mhm.
there anywhere that fans can come and see you? You've got any upcoming events coming up? Any merchandise you want to plug right now?
Um,
no, Jimmy's banned. He
no,
can't
I'm
plug nothing,
um,
nothing, nothing, nothing.
what have I got coming up? Have I got anything coming up? Well, I got the Huge Pop radio show with my good buddy Donnie DeSilva. We do. We have some great guests, and Rico, I think we're going to have you on one day.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I
So,
would love to be on your show. I would
Yes.
be honored to be
I
on
also
your show, sir.
I also do another show called Roughing It Up with some former referees, Brian Hebner, and also current referee Daniel Spencer, who is the head official in TNA.
Okay.
Having fun just doing that kind of stuff. And you know, sometimes I will appear. I haven't done very many appearances, as Amir can tell you. Ran into him in Gatineau, Quebec, last a week or so ago,
Yeah, about a week ago.
and it was a great
Two
time.
weeks.
Yeah.
I loved it. Was it 2 weeks ago? Has it
It
been
was
that
two
long
two weeks.
already?
Yeah, I know. 2 weeks ago Saturday. Unbelievable.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
But had a great time. It was a great chatting with you, man. It was fun,
Yeah,
getting to
absolutely.
pick your brain as well. You know what I mean? So,
Likewise,
I
likewise.
am
and
so happy you decided to come on my podcast, our podcast.
how could I not?
My gosh, it's an honor.
No, as soon as Amir told me, "Hey, Rico," and I said yes.
Yep.
You didn't have to say just when. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's a blessing to have you here. It's a blessing for me, obviously, growing up having watched you in the ring, Jimmy. So it's just and again, speaking with you in Canada was just I just appreciate it so much when I find like-minded individuals and we got
Mhm.
to debate there and stuff. And of course, I'm going to talk with you off camera about some other stuff as well when we get done here. But yeah,
Okay.
just an absolute pleasure. So yeah, so you heard
Okay.
Jimmy, everybody. So Jimmy, send me the links to those channels or
Okay.
the websites, and I'll put them in the
Right.
description of this video. So anybody who wants to hear a little bit more of Jimmy, make sure you check out the description of this video, and you can go and find those links. And Rico,
Well, even if you don't find the links, I'm going to tell you, Jimmy Korderas is one of the all-time best Marines.
there you go.
I'm going to tell you that
Thank
right
you.
now.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
There you go.
That means a lot.
So you don't need to go any further than this, but if you want to, go ahead. Jimmy
I
Korderas.
think we need to let them go further so they can expand their channels too, Rico. But Rico, your closing statement for us this week, sir.
Yes, everybody listen. This has been my motto my whole life. And here it is. What your mind can conceive, heart can achieve.
Hmm. Yeah, amen.
Mhm.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
It's
That's it.
that simple.
Yeah,
So keep it simple, stupid. That's
Mhm.
it.
there you go. Thank you.
Mind can conceive, your heart can achieve.
Thank
Look at me. I went from wrestling to police work to now I'm a freaking cowboy
Yeah.
shooting guns off a horse.
Yep. You can always turn a new
Life,
page.
there's always another chapter.
Yeah.
You just got to be willing to close that chapter
Right.
and open a new one and start it. And that goes for everybody,
Yeah.
not just wrestlers. You have to believe in yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
The
Rico.
human spirit is a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Rico. And Jimmy, I want to thank you so much. Jimmy, I don't want you to be a stranger. Of course, we do other podcasts as well on the channel. I want you back on here with Rico at some point, but I also want to reconnect you with Paul Roma and Mario
Oh,
Mancini over, yes, over on
oh, wow.
over on our other podcast of Power and Glory. So
Yeah.
we'd love to have you on there too. And I want to thank all of our viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you lay the smackdown on that subscribe button, hit the likes, and share with your friends and family. Until next time, everybody, God bless you all. Hey, Jimmy, God bless you. Rico, God bless you,
Thank you.
sir. And we will see you next week on Styling.